Hi guys, and welcome to another video on Back of the Net. We're doing something very different today. Lots of people on YouTube make these tier lists, and we thought we'd do it for the signings of Eddie Howe. How many times on Twitter and Facebook have you seen lots of opposition fans calling Eddie, Eddie fraud? I'm sure loads. And people always go on about the signings, talk about Jordan Ibe, Dom Solanke. Those two names are always mentioned, but I think it's only fair to rank all of Eddie Howe's signings that he's made for a monetary amount or a significant loan signing where we've paid out a lot. And that's what we're going to do today with the help of three Cherries fans that you know and love from watching the podcast. Firstly, Tom Jordan. Tom, how are you, mate?
Yeah, not bad, mate, considering. Not too bad, thank you, sir.
What is that retro shirt you're wearing, mate? I love it.
Colombia, Jeff Lerma. He's staying.
Beautiful.
Come on.
That is a beautiful shirt. We've also got Craig Beasley here as well. Craig, how you doing?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Yeah, how you doing, Tom? All right?
All good, Craig. Nice to see you, mate.
And also,
you as well, mate.
Kirk is here as well. Kirk, how are you?
Very good, thank you. Hello, guys.
You all right, mate? How you doing?
So you've seen these lists on YouTube, right? And quite often I've seen people like ranking Premier League clubs in terms of like stadium or manager or strikers or whatever. But this is all AFC Bournemouth, and we've got something that I've generated already. Look at that bad boy. So these are, I think it's about 40 or 41 we're going to go through. We're going to have to rattle through them fairly quickly. But what I'll do is I will come to you, sort of individually, and we'll sort of rotate and we'll decide if there are any objections. We can have a little discussion. And I've got all the stats here. I might sort of interject as well, but this is a thing for you guys to classify. Is Eddie a fraud in terms of his signings? There are some big names that we might want to mention as well, give a significant mention to who may not be on the list. But Tom Jordan, we're going to start with you. So firstly, who have we got then? It's Begovic.
Lovely.
So talk to me about him.
I think Benic's a tough one, actually, because I think it's quite easy to say Benic wasn't that good. But really, he didn't cost a fortune. And I remember when he first come in, he had a few injuries. He scored some really important goals. Really important goals when he first come in. He was obviously paired with King when King had his best season up front. And I thought that was... So to be fair, I don't think he's as bad as people make out. I think he's quite easy. He helped us get Wilshere as well, he deserves a mention for that. I would personally whack him in okay. And right in the middle.
Where did we sign him from?
He was Wolves, wasn't he?
It was Wolves, yeah. And you know what? He scored some sort of crucial goals. He wasn't the most natural striker. And, the more he thought about scoring, it seemed like the more time he had, the worse he was. He was very good with those, quick goals. I remember that header against Crystal Palace. There was a shot and a deflection. He headed it in for us to win 2-1. So, yeah, I agree with that. All good, boys, with putting Benic in okay?
Agree.
I agree, to be honest. We signed him for 10 mil, sold him for 10 mil, and then Wolves sold him a couple of days later to Stoke. So, he wasn't prolific, but at the same time, he did pop up with some vital goals for us.
Is it worth even chatting about the next guy? I'm not sure it is. Nathan Ake, we're going to put him right up there, aren't we?
Yeah, mate, definitely.
Honestly, what a guy. We're going to pay our appreciation to him in future podcasts, I'm absolutely certain. Harry Arter, what was it, Craig? Was it £4,000 from Woking or something stupid?
It was, yeah. I believe that's the sort of figure that we signed him for. He was an integral part of leading us up the leagues, an integral part of the championship team. Unfortunately, after the second season, he went a bit off the ball. There's so many rumours that circulate with why that might be. But for what he did at the club, he was a success. I believe
between the top two tiers, isn't it?
Yeah, most definitely. And I think seeing as I believe Fulham now have to purchase Arter as well.
I think he had to play a certain number of games, didn't he? And I'm not too sure whether he has or not. So he could still be coming back. But, he'll want Premier League football. I'm sure he'll have a word in Scott Parker's ear. So in a word, Craig, what are we going to go for? Good or God?
I would say if he didn't go off the ball, probably in the God like status. I think, probably dropped down to good because he did dip off. And it's a shame because I've got so much time for Harry Arter. But I think he didn't feel that connection with the fans from the third season onwards. It was a bit disappointing.
Well, we'll move on because obviously, we got a lot to go through. But yeah, I mean, Kirk, do you broadly agree with good? I mean, even if we sold him for $1 million, we would be making a fortune on that $4,000 that we paid.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think he was absolutely brilliant in League One and fantastic in Championship. And he scored some screamers in the Championship. We just didn't seem to get that out of him enough in the Premier League. But he's definitely up there. He's definitely better than okay.
Brad Smith, Kirk.
Oh, well, yeah, it's one of them. What was it, 3 million? I think it was that he probably played a few League Cup games or Carling Cup, whenever it was, for Liverpool. Eddie took a punt on him. I think at the start we thought it was one of those. We've got a player from Liverpool, so he must be half decent. It just never really worked out, did it? He was never that bombing on Charlie Daniels, and he was always going to be compared to that. And he was a little bit more reserved, wasn't he? So he wasn't a bad footballer. He just wasn't good enough for the Premier League. And what did he end up going to Australia in like his prime? That tells you everything. So yeah, I mean, I'd say poor.
Yeah, and I worked out the other day that he played 270 minutes in the Premier League. So that's what, three lots of 90 minutes. So that's 3 full games, £3 million. I mean, not great. He did play cup games as well, but yeah, I broadly agree with that. Azmir Begovic came with very high regard. Tom, a goalkeeper that was at Chelsea for long periods of time, won many trophies. At Bournemouth, he did all right, but that kind of went sour as well a little bit, didn't it?
Yeah, it didn't quite work. It was a strange one. I don't think I was the only person that was really happy with the signing. I thought that's a top signing. I always thought he was a good goalkeeper when he was at Stoke, and felt he was too good to be sat on Chelsea's bench, to be honest. He felt he should be playing. Just didn't really work. I remember thinking he's a good goalkeeper. He was doing all right for a bit, and then he went off the ball. But I just always felt like he was better than that, and he never really showed it. And I remember it wasn't long after him coming in, I thought, is he any better than Borich? I don't actually think he is. I don't think he was as bad as people make out. I think the problem is we signed him for a fair bit of cash. He was clearly on big wages. He was a big name. So it's a bit different to kind of the Brad Smith situation where he's a young player that didn't work out. Begovic was more expected, so he probably gets more criticised for it. I wouldn't put him in awful. I would say poor because he was overall for the fee. It just didn't work. But I could understand the sign at the time. It was a weird one. And like I say, seems to be doing all right. Obviously went over to AC Milan on loan and stuff. It just didn't work here. I don't know why. But yeah, poor for me.
Craig, I promise I didn't plan this, but the way it fell is that you've got Philip Billing, and regular podcast viewers will probably know your opinion. And that's a well-old picture of Philip Billing. But and this is the first player that is still at the club as well. I mean, Harry Arter, we don't know whether he will be. But yeah, Philip Billing's probably going to be here next season. It's very difficult to rate players that are currently in the squad, I think, because you don't want to be too harsh on them. But then again, you can only, go on what we've seen. And what have you seen from Philip Billing?
I think he's been terrible. There's been moments where I think, okay, there's a player in there somewhere, but he doesn't get up for the ball. Which how tall is he? He's 6 foot something. Yeah,
he's like Morgan Scott height, isn't he, or something?
Yeah,
6'5" or something. I can't remember.
Yeah, I'm worried. I'm worried for him because whoever comes in, I don't think are going to give him much time. I don't think Eddie would have given him much time, to be fair. But I think Eddie might have persevered and got him on that training ground.
Well, that's one thing with Eddie. Sometimes I feel as though he did persevere with his signings almost to try to justify it a little bit. I mean, Dom Solanke had a hell of a lot of games, and maybe he's found his rhythm now. We don't know. But if I'm going to push you for a instant verdict, Craig, whereabouts are we putting Phil Bill?
I would put him in poor. And the only reason I haven't put him at the very bottom is because in the Championship, I think he could be all right. He's not Premier League quality player. I question whether or not he'll be able to do a decent job in the Championship. However, give him. I'd like to give him a chance. But yeah, if he doesn't start well, after 5 games, that engine's going to be running. And it's Jason Tyndall or whoever. All they need to do is give me a call, and I'll take him wherever he wants to go.
Yeah, there we go. That is where we're at with the tier list so far. So Philip Billing has gone into poor. Next, Bournemouth's goal machine, Kirk, Callum Wilson.
Oh, I mean, snippet for what we got him for. That was a cracking buy for Eddie Howe. What was it, 3 million? Instant impact from him. Scored in the first game of the season. Was huge for us in our promotion season. Has done pretty well. He's done well. He's got into the England team. He's done well for the Premier League. Just for some reason this season, he's just struggled. He's been all out of sorts, and then obviously at the back end of the season, he just seemed to panic. Then he felt like he had to start scoring goals, and he was just, snatching, dragging shots wide, and just panicking every time. But he has been our goal machine. He's been our number 1 striker for 6 years, and he's got to go up with Ake.
Yeah, okay. Tom, agree with that?
Agree. 100%.
Yeah. Okay. Now, there's a significant loan signing here in Nathaniel Klein, who played a number of games with us. Tom Jordan, how do you think he did, and whereabouts would you put him?
I think he had a real indifferent time. I think there were some games where I thought he put in a really good shift. I remember the 4-0 against Chelsea. Yeah. And I thought he was brilliant. And I think he wasn't bombing on like I remember him doing when he was younger. Which I kind of expected from him. He wasn't someone that I ever thought I want us to sign, or I thought we would sign permanently. He had a few good games, then he had a few games where I thought he really don't look on it. But I don't think he was terrible. I mean, it was only a loan. We didn't, have to pay a fortune or anything to have him. So I would put him straight down the middle, to be honest, and okay. Because, I don't think he didn't set the world on fire, but I don't think he was horrendous. So I'd put him in the middle.
Okay. I agree with that. So Craig, David Brooks is yours, and how much do we sign him for? 12 million, was it, or something? I can't remember how much it was.
Yeah, something in that sort of region. David Brooks is a fantastic player. He's got a lot of talent. The only question mark for me is over his injuries. He seems quite injury prone, and that really has been what's done us this season. I think after lockdown, he didn't really find the form that he had found the previous season, where he was on fire. Was it Crystal Palace or was it? I think it was Crystal Palace game where he scored his debut goal.
Live on Sky as well, wasn't it? Monday night under the lights.
Yeah, it was a fantastic goal.
That sparked him into life as well, because he scored Watford in the 4-0 after that, and then he scored at Fulham in the 3-0, and he had a bit of a rich vein, didn't he? And that gave him so much confidence. I presume he's in one of the top 2 tiers for you, obviously, but probably not God.
Yeah, I would say he's good in the good tier alongside Arthur. I think he will, as long as he can keep himself fit, I think he will probably give us another season, even though there is interest. Mainly because of his injuries. I wonder how many clubs are really going to want to sign him, whether or not we'd actually get the money back for him as well, due to that reason alone. But don't get me wrong, even after lockdown, he showed lots of confidence. He just wasn't to the level where he was beforehand. So I think he can. I think he can be a fantastic player here. He will, could be, up there with Ake, alongside Ake. But I think at the moment, because of injuries, it's held him back, and it's no fault of his own. It's a shame.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. I think that's sound. Kirk, you've got Arnaud Danjuma, who we've not really seen much of, but very difficult one to rank at this point because he shows these little flashes, but ultimately hasn't really done anything. What have been your thoughts on him?
He's very technically a very good player, and I think he's probably one of the best technical players on a training pitch during the week when you look at him. I just think Eddie was probably expecting a little bit more drive and a bit more speed out of him. And I think he's a bit reserved. I do like him. And I think if we can keep him, he will be an important Championship player for us. I just think injuries, does he need time to adapt? Maybe he hasn't adapted to the English game yet. He's definitely got the technical ability. I'm just not convinced he's going to adapt to the English game, but only time will tell. I think he's okay just because we haven't seen enough of him.
Yeah. Just on Danjuma, I agree with Kirk. There's been flashes of brilliance. In one of the lockdown games, he was easily one of our best players. However, I do wonder if he's going to be suited to the Championship. That's my big concern. I think he's one of those players that might prefer the pace of the Premier League, and
it's a tricky one, really, because I think that.
Yeah,
I mean, I honestly think that Junior Stanislas could tear up the Championship if he took his form in Project Restart. Our best player, probably, on those last 9 games, and he was absolutely phenomenal. And Tom, a player that we wanted to be playing that didn't was Wee Man. Obviously, a lot of Cherries fans have got not nice opinions about him after the way he left. He obviously had that season of brilliant form. Eddie turned him into the player that he was, and then he goes and potentially. Well, he was looking at Arsenal, looking at Spurs, and now it looks as if he's going to, maybe double his money at a team like Crystal Palace. So it seems a sideways move to me. But I mean, we've got to look at it on the whole. Hard to do, but what's your thoughts on Wee Man?
Yeah, it is difficult to do, taking all that out of it. I mean, he's got his mega move to Palace now, hasn't he? God. Like I said, Eddie's got him. It was Aberdeen, wasn't it? And he was kind of just a young player coming through, and no one really knew much about him. And I don't know. I think it was it £1 million we had to pay in like comp or something. I don't think it was.
Yeah,
it was not just because of his age, but I mean, Eddie got the best out of him, and he decided not to help him out in a relegation battle. But apart from that, I think in general we've got to say, he had one incredible season. In the other seasons there were flashes here and there, and obviously went out on loan in between. Where he done really well at Ipswich, didn't he? But he had one unbelievable season, and you can't take that away from him. Yeah, I don't like the man very much right now, but in terms of an Eddie signing, he's got to be good. He's got to be.
Yeah.
I feel it's really hard to put him next to Harry Arter. I think it's hard for me to do because I think Harry Arter.
Right.
It's a really difficult one, but it's almost like Arter is not Ake, but he's clearly better than the other two in good. So it's really tough, isn't it? But but I think, to be fair, as a signing, which is what we're going for, it was a good signing.
Okay, we're gonna mix things up actually and do some quick fire ones. Okay, and what we're gonna do is do the loan signings. All right. So what we're gonna do is just go through them very quickly, and if you can maybe sum up your opinion in say 10 seconds. Because otherwise I think we could be here all night with this massive long list we've got. And so looking through the lines. So Craig, I'm going to come to you. Harry Wilson from Liverpool scored a number of goals for us this season. I think he ended up top scorer, did he? But thoughts and where would you put him?
I think I was a little bit disappointed with him at certain points. Yes, he does score some fantastic goals. I'd probably put him in the okay field. I don't think he's any more than that. I don't think he's any less. The goals he scored, some of them were spectacular. But then again, did he really contribute as much to games as he could? Let's be honest, there was a fantastic chance that he did have. And which, had that gone in, and he'd hooked it over the goalkeeper, we could be talking about a different story. So for every flash of brilliance, there's a point where he disappointed me.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. Kirk, over to you, and I'm going to give you Juan Iturbe. What a guy!
Do you know what? And I know you didn't want to spend a lot of time on this, but can I just say, I really wanted this guy to work for us. When you look on YouTube, he blitzed it up for Roma. He played 1 year in the Champions League. And when we got him, I thought, how the hell have we got this player? Do you know what was the problem? He was never going to be an Eddie player. He was never going to run up and down that line like Mark Pugh and Matt Ritchie did for Eddie Howe. He is a luxury player. He is a number 10 where you say no responsibility, give you the ball and do what you've got to do. And that was never going to be an Eddie player, and we were never going to be able to get him in our football team. I think he
did lack the discipline, didn't he?
Yeah, and I remember quickly, we played an FA Cup game, didn't we, at Portsmouth, and he wasn't getting much game time. And I remember Eddie putting him on the wing, and Eddie was shouting at him for about 60 minutes because he just wasn't doing the dog work. Yeah. And I just thought, it's a shame, because that was probably at the time, we'd never had a player like that, really. The skill that he had, it just never was going to work, and it's never really worked for him since he's left Bournemouth. I think he's playing in Mexico somewhere, or something like that. So we got to say, from a signing point of view, it was poor. Yeah, but it's not really his own fault, all his own fault.
That's fair enough. Tom Jordan, what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you someone that I know you love, Jack Wilshere. I personally love the guy. Seemed to have a really good, connection with the fans. Love playing down here. Some really positive comments about, Eddie Howe recently on Talk Sport as well. What were your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I loved him. And I think he's a clear example of don't just read the stats and think if someone's had a good season or not, because I think the best stat you want to look at is there was one season where Bournemouth got in the top 10 in the Premier League, and it was the one season where Jack Wilshere, and he made everything better. The amount of games we went, away from home, and I thought everything just looked so much. Some of the football we played, and it all went through him. I thought he was brilliant. It was a real shame that he didn't get a goal or two just to make it look a bit nicer for him. I mean, I'm gutted to see how it's gone for him at West Ham. I really thought that might be a good move for him. I was almost there was a part of me thinking, if we could just stay up and Eddie stay, we can maybe get him on like some sort of players you pay. Do you know what I mean? Some sort of contract, because he's clearly got a collection there. But yeah, I loved him. And for like I say, we come ninth. He was a big part of that. I'm going to put him in good.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Actually, thinking about Jack Wilshere, I would say that season was probably his best season that he's had as a footballer. Yes. And again, I think it's no fault of his own. He's very, very injury prone. And yeah, I think if we had signed him, and it pains me to say this because likewise, Tom, I would have loved to have seen him here permanently. I think he could have ended up being a waste of money because of his injury record. But for that one season, he was outstanding.
I remember a number of moments that specifically with Jack. I remember in that 4-3 against Liverpool. He was a big part of the comeback. I mean, one of the goals that we scored on the break was superb. I remember a goal that when we had our World Cup of goals in the lockdown, there was one goal that I thought was phenomenal that sort of got overlooked, and it was a 3-0 away win at Swansea, and the teamwork there, brilliant. Stanislas combined with Wilshere, little ball over the top. Stanislas could have shot, didn't, squared it to Fraser, who side-footed it into the roof of the net. And just, it was almost like, Arsenal and that kind of football that he's been playing for most of his career. So, I do agree with that. Next, we're going to move on to the next loan signing, and it's going to be. I tell you what, we're going to do Jermaine Defoe. So, obviously he had his first spell at the club, but he was brought back. Craig, Jermaine Defoe's second spell at AFC Bournemouth wasn't brilliant, was it?
No, for the amount we were paying.
Scored a couple of crackers, but
yeah, and if he was in the right place at the right time, he would put it in the back of the net. That's one thing you can say about Jermaine Defoe. There was a couple of times when, you thought, well, he could have done better. But that, I think it was again against Crystal Palace. That goal was outstanding. The problem is he's one of those players, and like he found at Sunderland as well, he needs to be in a side where they are making things for him, because considering his age now, he doesn't move about as much as you would have liked him to. I think I would put him probably for the amount of money we was paying him, alone, if you was basing it on all of his time here, I would say because of the first spell and nearly getting in the playoffs that spell, I would probably put him in good. For the last spell,
this is just Eddie signing, so this is just the second spell.
Yeah, of course. So the second spell, I would say probably okay to poor. Okay to poor. I'd probably put him in the poor category, to be fair. What do you guys think?
Sorry, Kirk.
I think, like any striker, and we're going to come up against a few more, I think he would hit one stumbling issue that he was never going to knock King and Wilson out of the team. And then, like you said, he lost that little bit of pace that he had at Tottenham, Portsmouth and all the other clubs he was at. And I think he struggled with that, and he wasn't sort of getting beyond defenders like he was. But I think in the back of his mind, he was sitting on the bench a lot thinking, I'm just never going to budge these two. And I think that played a part in him losing a bit of confidence. But he did score a cracking goal at Palace, and he did get some, I think he scored against Brighton as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Scored a great goal against Brighton. So I would put him in okay. I just think he just came to us at the wrong age, trying to take two players out that were never going to be budged. And I think he just lacked some confidence, maybe.
Okay, so Craig said Paul, Kirk said okay. I'll give the final call to you then, Tom.
It's difficult because I kind of go against a lot of people, and I totally agree with all the points, and I can see why people would say one that's successful. From my point of view, I thought he wasn't brought in to be the main man. He was never, like Kirk mentioned, he was never going to come in and start over Wilson and King. That's first. Yes, he was on big wages, but there wasn't a massive fee we had to pay up front. And to be honest, he was brought in aging as kind of a backup striker. We had an awful start of the season. We played Brighton, which was the earliest 6-pointer ever. We were 1-0 down. He come off the bench. He got the winner. We went to Palace. We drew 2-2. He scored both goals. We went to Watford, and in the 90th minute, he got a last-minute equaliser. That's a few points for a backup striker. And I understand the kind of wages, and because it was Jermaine Defoe, what I'm saying is if that was a striker from the Championship that we brought in to be a backup striker that no one knew, everyone would be saying that was a good signing. So for that, I reckon he should go in okay, at least.
And actually thinking about it now, and the points you make are very good, Tom. Where would we have ended up had he not scored those goals?
And I also think that probably, I'm not being funny, if you're Callum Wilson and Josh King and you're seeing Jermaine Defoe on the bench, I bet that's the difference to seeing Dom Solanke, no disrespect. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Because well, if we're not firing, Eddie's going to go, well, I know I can trust Jermaine Defoe. He's been there and done it. So I do think, and I can just imagine, I don't know, I can imagine him being quite good on the training field, behind the scenes. And I think for a short-term thing, I don't think it was as bad as people make out, to be honest.
Okay, so who am I coming next to? Is it you next, Kirk?
Yeah, me, yeah.
I think it was. I'm going to give you Kenwyne Jones. I mean, that's a tricky one. I mean, well, exactly. I mean, but it was that one moment, and
it's enough. Sam, it's enough.
It is enough, isn't it? I mean, but category. What do you think?
But what a legend! Hey, what a legend! Again, he was sort of like we just needed him at that time, and it was a sort of it was a punt, wasn't it? It was another punt, and it sort of came off ready, and we got that result at Ipswich. He scored that goal. He's a legend. But overall, I put him in okay. But he is a legend in my opinion. I
would argue good. I would argue good.
But we are basing it on one.
He didn't cost nothing though. He didn't cost anything.
No. Okay, I'm going to be swayed on because I am contradicting myself. So I'm calling him a legend and putting him in okay. Let's go for good. But that was a hell of a punt of a signing.
Yeah. So you know what? I'm looking through this list, and some of the faces I don't even recognise. Who's that one that my mouse is over right now? Can you see that?
That's Conor Mahoney.
That's Conor Mahoney.
Oh yeah, Conor Mahoney.
That's an old picture of him. Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, there are a number of others to go through. Just check in any more loan signings. Royce, Wiggins. Oh, Jack Wilshere. I've put Jack Wilshere in there twice. So
he's that good.
Yeah, he's that good. You know what? We'll put him in good as well once more. So we'll go through the list from left to right. Then coming to you, Tom. Lewis Grabban.
Oh, so is this what are we doing? He's been signed by Eddie twice, hasn't he?
I suppose he has.
So we do it a full all round.
Yeah.
So obviously the first time he was unbelievable, wasn't he? Really that him and Brett. And I think I've got a feeling, I might be wrong here, but I've got a feeling his record, like kind of goal to game ratio in the Championship, was better than Callum's for us. He was brilliant, and I remember being absolutely gutted when I heard he was going. Obviously, we ended up not being too bothered because we got Callum Wilson for the kind of same price. But in his first spell, he was unbelievable, and then he come back in. He come the same time as a Phobie and a Turbe, didn't he? In that January, and it was a difficult one. I felt like when we got them three in, it was kind of because we wanted to make sure we stay up, and then we done it quite quickly. And then we didn't really need to play him that much. He kind of come off the bench. I don't think he scored, did he, in the Premier League? I don't think he did.
No, he didn't.
No. I remember he scored against us for Norwich, didn't he? But I mean, he's got to go, and I think it's a pretty standard one, really, because I don't think he's God, but he's better than okay. He's just got to be good for me. I like Grabs, and to be fair, I would take him back now. If we lost Callum and Josh for a season to try and get you out the champ, I'd take him.
Max Gradle, Craig.
So, of course, another player that's had two spells, but one wasn't under Eddie, one was under Kevin Bonds. In his second spell, he was a player that was really attractive in how he played. Again, it's a shame it didn't work out for him in the second spell, but there was flashes of brilliance. I think. It was just a shame how it worked out. But I think based on what he did, I would put him in the okay category. Yeah,
I'm on board with that. Kirk, Emerson, Hindman. It's a player that we didn't really see much of. He's one of those players that we mainly saw either in the Carabao Cup or in pre-season friendlies in bloody La Manga or Philadelphia or Minnesota or wherever it was. I can't remember, but we barely saw anything of him. But when you did see him, what do you think? And how do you rate the signing?
And didn't we get him on a free?
Yeah, it was that.
I remember Fulham fans going absolutely mental, and it was going mad on Twitter, and they were like, "You have absolutely done us over here. You have got a player," and I was really excited about him. It comes into that category again. At that time, he was never going to get Sermon and Arter at the team, and he never really got a decent shot at it, did he? Really? And he was almost knowing that he was going to get one game in the Carabao Cup, and he had to turn up, and he never really did. And I think he probably felt the pressure that if he didn't have a massive performance, he was going to have to wait again 10 games to have 10 minutes off the bench. It obviously didn't work out. Again, he was one of those that ended up playing in the MLS in his prime. I don't really hear much about him now, so he clearly wasn't the player everyone thought. I wouldn't say he was awful. And again, I'd put him in that category that he was poor, but I don't think it was all his own fault.
No, I mean, obviously, there are considerations to weigh up when we're categorising these in terms of how much they cost as well. Because obviously,
free. So.
Yeah, exactly. But even despite that, we didn't really see the best of him, I don't think.
All I will say, Sam, he played his only Premier League start was on the last game of the season against Burnley. He randomly got a start because there was nothing, and we actually won at Burnley. We never win at Burnley, so he's God. He's God.
Yeah, I remember that game. Was it
Defoe and Wilson last minute? Yeah,
that last minute slip. Yeah, I remember. Oh,
but he just randomly started that game, and I remember thinking it was only Premier League start. I remember thinking he's quite good, but I don't know what. I reckon there was probably something behind the scenes. He probably didn't. Eddie, as Kirk alluded to earlier, with like a turbo and that, you've got to be a certain type of player, and whether he was a bit lightweight or didn't put the graft in or just didn't do what Eddie wanted. But like you said, he's now playing it. If he was that good, he wouldn't be in the MLS. He's not old, is he? Do you know what I mean? He's in his prime, like you say. So
I reckon he's got. Is he 30? Is he?
I don't even reckon he's that.
Oh, I think he's about. I think he's about 28. Yeah, he's not. We got him. He was quite young when we got him.
Next, Tom.
I've got him. I know I've got him.
Jordan and I. I'll see you later.
How long you got, Stan?
Well, I mean, come on.
Time to put in a new category. I think.
Do you know that's what Jordan Hyde did when he crashed his car? By the way.
It's a shame. I mean, joking aside, because I don't know the guy. Do you know what I mean? And I feel for him because he's. It probably didn't help. He was getting all this hype. Like, I think when he was at Liverpool at one point, they said he was better than Sterling. So I'm not sure if I agree with that anymore. Here's another one you said earlier, Sam, about kind of Dom Solanke and billing and stuff, and about Eddie persisting with players. I mean, Eddie couldn't have persisted with him more. He wasn't one, like we said about Hindman, that maybe didn't get a chance.
Yeah,
he persisted and persisted, and he was awful. And he'd have. And then you think for 10 minutes he was good. That Brighton game we said about Defoe's
Brighton.
That was it. He had, I reckon, 15 minutes in his Bournemouth career where he was amazing.
Wasn't he brilliant in pre-season though?
He was always good in pre-season.
Yeah, always scored a goal.
Yeah, and you always hear about them players, don't you? I mean, we'll sure go on to like Ranty and stuff later. You always hear about like Ranty being amazing in training, being amazing in pre-season. Well, I'm sorry, but you got to do it, when it matters. It's not his fault he cost 15 million. It just, for whatever reason, I mean, he's come out and said a few things how it's, in his head and stuff like that, whether it just wasn't the right time and he's just, a few things going on for him, perhaps. I mean, people say there's clearly a player there. I mean, I don't know where that is because I've not seen clearly a player. Honestly, I see someone that gets the ball and does not know what to do. And I don't mean to be harsh, but he's got to be awful. He's got to be 15 million quid, and he's been absolutely hopeless. And I don't know where he's going to go now. I'd love to see him. I would genuinely love to see him get like a championship club and do really well and kind of find his feet again. But I just can't see it. I don't know what team's going to take a punt on him. I really don't. It'd be interesting.
Who would pay his wages as well?
Exactly.
It was on fair amount. There was, I saw a Wickham fan saying that, because of course he was there. Saying why, that they should go for him, but they can't. I can't see him going to Wickham. They won't be able to afford him. I think his best bet as well for his own career is to go to the continent. The thing that annoyed me most about Jordan Ibe was that he would make some good runs. He would get away from players, and then you thought, pass. There's King there. There's Wilson. Pass. They're in a better position.
There was no Brooklyn brain at all, was there?
No, absolutely nothing.
So I think we're all in agreement there. Craig, we're coming on to you next with Lloyd Kelly, who hadn't started in the Premier League until Project Restart, but I don't think so anyway. But we've seen some good flashes of him, and the biggest compliment I can pay to him is that in that 2-1 defeat at Man City, I didn't really realise that Nathan Ake wasn't there.
No, completely agree. And I think he is Ake's replacement, effectively, if there ever is one. But he seems to be very, very mature. He's been quite unlucky, of course, being injured for most of the season. But there's definitely a quality player in there. And I can't wait to see him in the Championship. I think, he will do. And I think it was before the Wolves game that we was discussing, Sam? We did a video. Yeah, I checked up because at that point he hadn't played for us. And I checked some of the videos of the footage at Bristol City. I thought, actually, this is a good player on our hands here. We've got somebody who Bristol City fans were singing highly about as well. Is he going to be able to do it in the Premier League? And actually, even though we went down, he showed that he can. The problem is, he's going to be
brilliant in the Premier League. If he can be brilliant in the Premier League, he's surely going to be excellent in the Championship.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. And I know from reading the comments on the YouTube videos that the Bristol City fans were devastated to lose him. I think at this point in time, because he's played 8 games for us.
Something like that.
I would probably put him in the okay, but I think he could certainly get himself up to that godlike status. And I think he's a massive part. I just hope he stays, because I think that there will be some vultures circling now, based on what he's done. He's done.
Liverpool linked, aren't they already?
Yeah,
they bid for that Norwich left back, so I think that was Kelly was like their other one. But what I will say is, I can see what Craig means. Playing 8 games, it seems a little bit harsh to put him in the same bracket as. Seems a bit too much to put him in the same bracket as like Harry Arter. But what I will say is, he's played 8 games and he's got to have at least doubled in value. That's impressive. And like you said about the Ake thing, if you ever want pressure on you, you haven't played all season. You're now playing at the back against Man City trying to replace Nathan Ake, and he did it with ease. And like you say, as much as I'm devastated with Ake, I'm really looking forward to seeing this player. And yeah, they gave us a bit more balance as well. I liked him when him and Rico were on that left during the end of lockdown. I thought that was promising. So I think he's definitely going to be good. I think, but I can understand.
Yeah, I think it's probably the way like the way we've done it with 5 tiers. It almost needs to be like bloody GCSE. Well, GCSEs used to be like A, B, C, D, E, but A star. And of course, Ake would be A star. Lloyd Kelly would probably be a B. So whilst we've got him there, looking in the okay category alongside people like Harry Wilson, who, let's be fair, a lot of fans didn't warm to. I think if we could put them in between okay and good, we probably would. But alas, I didn't do 6 tiers because I was lazy. We'll come over to Lewis Cook now. Who's next?
Yeah, that's me. Yeah,
Lewis Cook.
Yeah, so really excited about this signing. It's funny, isn't it? Because we got on Eddie's back about this one because we were so frustrated that it took so long to get him in the team. Once he got in the team, he came alive and he was splitting defences and midfields. He was that one player we had in the team that could take 3 players out of a midfield with one pass.
I remember it's a home match against Leicester, I think, where we saw him the first time. It was like 0-0, or 1-0 or something. But he was unbelievable. He played really well and a worldie of performance, and always has his moments, but he's not infallible and he does make mistakes, and he's probably one of the players that most of us are scratching our heads thinking, will we retain him next season or not?
Yeah, what's upset me about him is he got that really bad injury and he seems to have come back a completely different player. So he was different to Arthur and Sermon. He tried to play that decisive final pass, and he's now become a player that is similar to Sermon and Lerma, where they want to go. He goes sideways a lot now. So we've almost got all our midfielders are pretty identical. And I love that cutting edge he had about him, and he seems to have lost that now, whether that's due to his injury or whether that's due to what Eddie was telling him. But I would still like to put him in the good. Yeah. I'd like to put him in the good slightly because I think he has been a good player for us. There's also been times, remember, when Eddie's tried to play him in a 3 and put him out wide left in a 3, and he's clearly not been comfortable there. But it's whether he's changed his game because of his injury or because he's been told to play differently. He's just not the player he was when he first broke into that team.
I'd say, in fairness, to just try to think about it, because I agree. I wonder if also that it's kind of tied in that now he's kind of, like you say, I agree, more sideways passing, not that killer pass. But is that also the fact that people like, for example, Callum Wilson are not making the runs that they used to? If the people in front of you are not as confident as they were previously, do you know what I mean? I wonder if things aren't happening in front of him as much as well. Just to give that to Lewis a little bit. He's one of them players that I think could end up leaving and we think, God, that was one that didn't work when we thought it would, or be in the Championship Team of the Year next season. Do you know what I mean? He could, because if he's on it, he could be the best centre midfielder in that league by a mile. So it'll be interesting.
So Tom Jordan, Jefferson Lerma, very happy. Very happy. He's got the shirt for it, and it just fell to you like that. Lerma, mate.
Yeah, I love him. Absolutely love him. I mean, I'm not gonna. I would love to just put him straight away in God, but I don't think it's fair to. I think he's been a great signing, but he cost a lot. He cost a lot of money, and he's been here only a few seasons, and one of them we got relegated. So, putting it all into. But I think the fact is, we were all crying out for this type of player for a long time. We were kind of asking Sermon to do that job, which isn't his job. And I felt like Sermon ended up getting kind of unfair criticism because he was being asked to do something that he wasn't natural at doing. Lerma, whatever happens, he was apart from Ake and Ramsdale, he was my next one this season that have had top seasons, them 3. And I don't think, probably he was a little bit sluggish after lockdown, I would agree with that, because of the high standards he set. But I feel like even Jefferson Lerma on a bad day, it's still a Jefferson Lerma that you would put in your team. And you could see whatever was going wrong, Eddie would keep Jefferson Lerma in the team. If we keep him in the Championship, I mean,
that'd be unbelievable.
It's a difficult one because I feel like he's too good for the Championship, but I think, well, we're never going to get our money back for it. No one's going to come in and get 30 million for players just being relegated, kind of that in that mould. So it depended on the wages and stuff. If they could afford to, I think we probably would try and keep him. I'd like to think he would carry on playing. I mean, you've got to remember that the Championship is still one of the top leagues in Europe, even though it's second tier in England. If we can keep him and get back up, I think He's a top player. I really like him. He's got to be in good because I think he's been a success. And if he stays for a long period of time, he could easily get into God.
Have you seen that they've considered potentially loaning him out? So if we get promoted, we've still got him to. I mean, I'd love to keep him, but they've potentially looked at if he does go, he goes out on a loan for a year, but then he still
just because of the wages.
Yeah, and then if we get promoted, we've got him back in the Premiership.
How much are his wages? I'll do a whip round.
That's right. I think we need to do murmur share or something. Right, we're going to just whip through a few people. So what I'm going to give each of you chance to say one sentence and then rank the player. Yep. Okay, and these are going to be the lesser players, the ones that we don't really remember, to be honest. And Craig, it's coming to you next. And Mark Wilson. Rumours about this guy. Probably less said about that the better, because I don't want to get in trouble. But very brief thoughts and rank the guy.
Wow, I can see why Eddie signed him. A little bit of experience, but yeah, he didn't play at all, did he, in the Premier League? He did have a previous spell again, but I think from his second spell, you've got to probably put him in poor to, well, probably awful considering.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. Kirk, Connor Mahoney.
Yeah, I'd put him in awful as well. I think they thought they were getting a player there that, I think, did we get him on a free as well? Is it a couple $100,000?
I did a bit of research actually about this because went to a tribunal. It was 425,000, but we sold him for 1.1 million.
God, that is unbelievable business.
Yeah.
He's a genius.
He didn't play a game for us, and I think
he got a League Cup run out, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He did. I've got to say something. I've met him on a couple of occasions, and he's a thoroughly decent guy. We actually come back from Reading after spending there at Christmas, and I tried to get the little one a ticket for the Everton game, but I couldn't get it. Yeah. So I put on Twitter, anybody got a ticket for the Everton game? And he popped straight up within 5 minutes. So yeah, a lovely guy, but yeah,
and we've just put him in awful. God,
he'll be regretting that now, won't he?
Yeah. Tom, I'm going to give you Lee Tomlin.
Oh God, I hate Lee Tomlin. Lee Tomlin. How much did he cost? He wasn't that much, was he? To be fair,
3 million.
Yeah, 3 million. So I'm not going to go awful just because he was 3 million, but he wasn't a success. But I don't think he's been a success anywhere recently. Let's put him in poor.
Yeah. Do you know what though? He is technically a good player.
He's just overweight.
But do you know what? He goes into that category that we've already talked about. He's not an Eddie player.
No, he's a weird signing. Weird signing.
He scored some cracking goals for Bristol City some really
technically
goals as well.
He scored the other day in the playoff semi-final.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, for Cardiff.
We come up from the we come up from the Championship as an attacking, fast, fluid team, and he was completely the opposite at Middlesbrough.
We ended up with Tomlin and Murray.
Yeah,
doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
He doesn't look after himself, Tomlin. I think he always strikes me as very unfit. It's a shame because again, there is a player in there that can do something, but yeah, he's way too slow. It was never going to work out.
Okay, Craig, Royce Wiggins.
How many times did we sign Royce Wiggins?
About 30,000.
Very injury prone. I think wasn't really cut out. I was surprised that he stayed around as long. When did he actually leave the club?
He was just sat on the bench getting paid. I'm not surprised. I'd do the same. Can we just say before? No, it's not about that. But can we just, if we're going to go awful, can we move him up to poor because he was part of the Great Escape?
Yeah.
Sentimentally.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Sam.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Kirk, we'll do Tequila Ranty for you.
Yeah. Well, we wanted to run on the pitch, didn't we? We were desperate for him for it to work for him, weren't we? I mean, he got those few goals at Birmingham that we were chuffed for, but. It didn't quite work out, and he just didn't cut the mustard, did he? But he was a great character. The fans took to him. It's just a shame he couldn't have a legendary legacy at the club.
So what are we going to do?
Sorry. So yeah, I can't put him in awful because I did love.
He was only a mil, wasn't he? He was only a mil.
I'll put him in poor.
And I would describe
God.
him as a sort of YouTube player. A player that if you look at his clips, you think, bloody hell, he's quick.
We should put a Tovey and Ranty into YouTube player category.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
YouTube player. Right, Tom, then I'm going to come to you. And Glenn Murray for you arguably provided one of the standout Premier League memories for AFC Bournemouth, maybe.
How much did he cost? I'm trying to think now. He wasn't much, a couple of million, wasn't he?
Yeah, a few million from wherever he was.
Yeah, so I'm tempted as much as Palace, yeah. As much as really, in the grand scheme of things, he wanted a success. He didn't stay around long. He wasn't an Eddie type player, like we've said. He was a plan B. He knew he was a plan B. He ended up kind of being forced into playing a lone striker role on his own because of Callum's horrific injury. So it's easy to say Glenn Murray was rubbish, but he cost peanuts. He got us one of my favourite ever wins away at Chelsea. Yeah. He scored a few. I'm almost tempted to say, was he actually, in the grand scheme of things, was he actually quite good? Because we got him, not for much, scored a few crucial goals, and then said, right, see you later. But I'm just going to go okay. Let's go okay. I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think that's fair. There he goes in okay. So, we'll give Lys Mousset to Craig Beasley.
He showed signs of brilliance. I'm not very happy with some of the things that I've heard come out of his mouth since he left. But there was certainly something to him. I think again he was always going to he was never going to dislodge Callum and King. I would say he was okay.
Yeah, we made a profit. We've got to put that into it, haven't we?
Yeah,
most definitely.
Now, these are things that we also need to be sort of keeping in mind. Obviously, like there are some players, like the player that I'm going to come to you next with, Kirk, is a player that we almost tripled our money on. Well, we could, depending on appearances, and that's Tyrone Mings, signed from Ipswich. Obviously, dreadful in terms of injury, and some people regarded him as dreadful on the pitch. But Villa wanted him. They got him, and it was a win-win situation. And it was a bit of a weird signing because the Bournemouth fans are saying, well, thank God he's gone. We've done so well out of that. And Villa fans are thinking we've got an absolute bargain. Even more so when only after a couple of months he goes and makes the England squad. Bizarre player, bizarre signing.
And he was brilliant at Ipswich. He comfortably covered the ground for Ipswich in the Championship, and when we got him for 8 million, I think it was, and I thought the only question mark was going to come up was how he was going to get in the team and dislodge Francis, Kirk, Charlie Daniels, because originally he was sort of a left back at Ipswich, wasn't he? He wasn't a centre back. Then he came on for 5 minutes, and that was his season done. That was his first season, wasn't it? When he had the physique and everything about him was right to be a decent player, and he covered the ground quite quickly. I think he had the odd mistake in him, but I think we made a return on him. He was never going to get Ake out of the team once that Ake had secured that position, was he? So I think he knew his career was going to be away from Bournemouth. He probably went to Eddie, I want first team football. Eddie was like, I can't guarantee that because of Ake and Kirk, and then the club decided to make a treble his value and make a profit. So I would put him in okay.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Right, Tom, I'm going to give you the honour of grading Mark Pugh.
God.
Yeah. Instantly.
I could talk about him for an hour, Sam. There's no point, is there? Do you know what I mean? He's just, I mean, how much did we actually sign him for? Was it?
It was on a tribunal, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's why I wasn't sure. Yeah, we had to pay a little bit, but I mean, unbelievable. I mean, every league just incredible. We can't say enough. Missed the ball before the pitch one. He's in everyone's top 5 players ever. Do you know what I mean? He's God.
I'd still love him back.
I'd have him back in a heartbeat.
And I'm going to give you the honour, Craig, of doing Matt Ritchie as well.
Oh, wow. Matt Ritchie, signed from Swindon. They didn't want to let him go. He was, outstanding. Scored some vital goals. He can't not be in the godlike status. It's a shame that he went to Newcastle and took the drop back down. I'd love to see him do it again and come back home. But yeah, I would. There's no way he can't not be in that god status for what he's done for this club.
We obviously chatted to him. Are you in agreement with that?
Yeah, he's our mate, isn't he, Sam? He might watch this. But God, he's like, I agree. I think for some reason people, I don't know if it was because people were a bit upset that he left. Really, it doesn't seem like he gets the same kind of rapport with the fans as some of the others. But if you go back to that championship season, I reckon he was probably our best player.
Yeah,
when we won that, he was incredible. So, and I'd like to say I'd have him back tomorrow. So, I think for when he was performing for us and we made a profit, he's got to be God.
Yeah, he goes in the God category, and there you see him there. And I think, absolutely, what a player. And that top four is pretty sound, isn't it? Nathan Ake, Callum Wilson, Mark Pugh, and Matt Ritchie there. So next on the list, Kirk, I'm going to come to you, and I'm going to give you someone that's our player of the season, surely, Aaron Ramsdale. We've recently turned down a £12 million bid from Sheffield United. I don't know whether they're going to come back, but, they've got a decent keeper already, but they're obviously after their Rambo back. Thoughts on him and where do we put him?
Yeah, I think he just nudges player of the season this year. I will be extremely frustrated and disappointed if he leaves us this season. I don't even think there's a value that I would accept for him. I think he would give us another season to try and get back up. I think he loves the club. He loves the fans. 12 million is an absolute insult. We're talking about Pickford at 30 million. We're also talking about Butland, where Stoke wanted 25 million from us. Okay. So if we think about that, they need to really have a look in the mirror at Sheffield United, because that's an insult. I saw
that one of the reporters said that Bournemouth actually said that is disgusting. They didn't just turn it down. Apparently Bournemouth said, we are not happy with that's an insult kind of thing. And said, if you're going to come back, you need to do something a lot better than that. So I like that from Bournemouth, that we've kind of said we ain't being bullied because we've been relegated. Because like you said, Pickford went for 25 million. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I think, to be perfectly honest, I think Rambo could be England number one in the future.
It really has.
But I think he's not God yet. I think he could become God if he stays. I think he's good. He's had a brilliant season. I don't think the defence has helped him since Project Restart, and I think conceding all those goals at the start wasn't his fault, but he's definitely good, and I hope that he stays.
Okay, so brilliant stuff. Tom, we're going to come back to you, and I'm going to let you pick. 5 to go now. We've got Mepham, Rico, Solanke.
I know I'm having.
Stacey and Sermon.
I'm having Sermon just to make sure neither of these two don't put him as God. Sermon is God.
Yeah.
He comes to it. I always say it to people that when we won the championship, he was voted by the players as their player of the season, and that says it all. We had so much quality in that squad.
Yeah.
And he was voted by his teammates. I think it's probably because the teammates thought he doesn't get, he makes everything happen. And put it this, there's only one season where he hasn't really played much, and that was this season, and we got relegated. He's God.
Yeah. He's incredible. I'm going to put him in God, but he's a player that Craig and Kirk, he probably, still gets a fair amount of stick.
Yeah. I've definitely given him a lot of stick over the years. He is probably, and I've always said this, I reckon he's the ultimate pro at our football club. At 100%. However, would you lot agree that it's been frustrating under Eddie's spell that he's kept players like Jack Wilshere and Lewis Cook out of the team? I love Sermon. He is very sideways. He plays his football in front of midfielders and defences, and that becomes frustrating for me because it's very predictable. But I think he's an ultimate pro. I think he's the one person you'd want for young players to look up to. He is a god, obviously, but it's just annoying when we bring players like in Jack Wilshere and it takes some time to get him in because Sermon's in there.
Craig, I'll let you pick your next player then from Stacey, Rico, Solanke, and Chris Mepham.
You know what? I'm actually going to go for Stacey because
talk to me about him.
I actually think he's a bloody good signing from Luton. Before he joined us, he hadn't really played many games in the Championship. He played a couple for Reading, but never set the world on fire. He went down to Luton, to League Two, managed to get him up twice. And when he joined, I thought it's a bit of a punt. How much did we sign him for, Sam?
He was.
I wouldn't say about 4 million.
Yeah, it was a couple of mil. Yeah.
Something like that.
I thought he was an attacking player because I think he was one of their top scorers from right back. He scored quite a few goals.
Yeah, he does. And that's what is.
Yeah,
I think
4.5 from Luton. Yeah,
4.5. See, I think he's a fantastic piece of business because, again, like Lloyd Kelly, he'll be a fantastic player in the Championship.
He's in the Frano mould, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's just a young, a more able version, really.
Yeah.
But it's a shame actually with Frano and how little time he's got this season because he's always been the model professional. And with sorry, I'm deviating away, but with Frano, when he had a bad game, he would bounce back twice as strong. There was the game, and I mentioned it to you before, Sam, against Huddersfield. We got beat 4-1 up there. It was snowing.
Coach, I remember it well.
Yeah, I was going to go. Place I bloody didn't in the end. I watched it on Sky. And it was probably one of the worst probably the worst performance in the Premier League.
Yeah.
But Frano was horrific that day, But he bounced back just twice as strong. Yeah. And Stacey is in the Frano mould, as you say. I think at the moment you've got to put him in the OK category alongside Lloyd Kelly. But there's no reason why he can't be a massive player for us here. Those two alone, I think Kelly and Stacey, could be fantastic players for us.
I think he's okay, turning into good. And, I think if there was a tier between that, then 100% he would be, certainly above because he's a player that I certainly rate. Kirk, when it comes to you, choose your weapon.
I'm going to take this one just for Rich. I'm going to take Solanke.
Go on. Fill your boots. What was it, 19 mil?
Yeah. So actually, I thought, we may have a sign in here. The only concern I ever had was he ripped it up in youth levels and international youth levels, but it wasn't enough for Chelsea. Liverpool took him on as a free. And it for me, if you're selling a player at his age for 19 million, there was a question mark in actually is he going to be a good player because 20 million is nothing in the current market at 19, 20, 21. So Klopp didn't feel he was going to become a Raheem Sterling or anything special like that. So, however, obviously we trust in Eddie and we trust in that. For me, looking at him and what he's delivered, it's good to see that he's come good in those few games since Project Restart. Still yet to be convinced. I hope he rips it up in the Championship. My gut feeling is he's just going to be a player that gives us the odd moment. I think he'll just come alive, score the odd goal, maybe big goals. I just don't think he'll become a top player. I'm going to say okay. I don't want to put him in the poor yet.
That is generous.
Do you know why I'm putting him okay? Because I think he did turn up after Project Restart once he got his chance.
Fair play.
If he hadn't have done those, and that one goal he got against Leicester, he was a different man. It was
so he really is.
He wouldn't be. If he had stayed up, he'd have been God for that moment, wouldn't he?
I think he's confidence.
I'm not convinced he's going to become a top player for us or a top player full stop. I think he's just going to be the player that maybe scores the odd goal or big goal or gets the winner. And I think that's all he'll become. But if he gets enough of them for us to get us up, I'll be happy.
Okay, so coming back to you, Tom, you've got the choice of Diego Rico or Chris Mepham. Who do you want to pick? This reminds me of like playing football at school in primary school where you pick your team. It's like who's the last person that's going to be picked. So who are you going to go for?
We'll go for Diego. I think.
Diego.
Yeah.
Talk to me about him.
I think when he first come in, I thought, and you tell me we'd be doing this a few years on, I think, well, he'll be awful. I thought this guy can't be a footballer. He's won it on a, do you know what I mean, in a competition. I've never seen someone so. But the recovery, fair play to the guy. Do you know what I mean? It can't be easy. He's come over here. Don't think he speaks an awful lot of English. Do you know what I mean? He's come over here, and to bounce back like he has, when he would have known that the players and the fans think, God, what is this guy all about? And then he ended up, I mean, I don't like to look into stats too much, but his interceptions and pass completion and all that is right up there in the Premier League. I think he was in the top interceptions in Europe, something ridiculous considering got relegated. But to be fair to him, I put it this way, if we went in next season, whether it be the Premier League or what it's going to be, the Championship, and you said he's starting in our first game as left back, I'd take it. I think he's a good player. I think Charlie Daniels is a very hard player he's been unbelievable for us for a number of seasons. It was always going to be. And what I will say is so many, we said about Brad Smith, people have come in and tried to dislodge, Wiggins didn't really try, but tried to dislodge that left back spot. Mings, you could argue, was getting moved into centre back. And no one's come close. Yeah. He's the only one. And I think there was someone on Twitter who put a stat up and I saw it. It was something to do with, when Daniels ain't in the team, the amount, how much worse our kind of win percentage is. But when Rico's the one that replaces him, it's a hell of a lot better than if we move Smith there or play, Ake left back or whatever. And I actually will say that after lockdown, we started awful. And then when Eddie decided to stop playing Smith at left back and made us a bit more balanced, we looked a lot better. And I think he was about, because of the Euros, I think it worked out he was about 6 million, something like that. And to be honest, I feel like that's a decent amount of money for what we've had so far. He's still young. He can still get better. I'm going to be nice to Diego and I'm going to put him in good for his recovery. And I'm quite looking forward to seeing him in the Championship. I think if he had a bit more of a licence to go forward, and I'll also say if he had a striker that wanted to get on the end of things a bit more than Callum did this season, he could have got a few more assists because he could put some balls in. So, I'm happy with Diego.
And Kirk, you've got Chris Mepham. This is quite an interesting one, this.
I think it's Craig, sorry.
Oh, sorry, yeah, of course it is. Yeah, of course it's Craig.
I think we have got one each, actually, because I've just worked out we've left somebody out.
Oh, who have we left out?
Up front.
Hang on.
Josh King.
Wow, yeah.
Remember Josh King?
Josh King.
It's probably because he was a free. You didn't think of it.
Right. Who do you want?
Yeah, if he was, you know what? But yeah, well, you can choose, Craig. Who would you like? And we'll add him in after.
I'll tell you what. I'll take Mepham. I'll let Kirk finish off with King. Yeah. Mepham signing from Brentford. I don't think he's quite. I don't think he was Premier League quality. I think he showed some signs of brilliance. There was times when I thought, okay, there's a decent partnership forming there at the back. But I don't. I think he'll be decent. He'll be decent in the Championship. I think he'll definitely stay. I don't think anybody will come in for him. The only thing I did think was Brentford, if they went up, might have come in and said, right, okay, we'll take him. But I think he would have just been a squad player there, like he is here. I think he'll be all right in the Championship. He's been there before. I would say he's okay, in the okay category at the moment, but he's nothing more based on what he's done so far.
What do you think is going to be happening in terms of the centre defence partnership next season? Do you think it will be Kirk and Kelly, or do you think Mepham can, dislodge one of them? How do you think it's going to play out?
I think it's got to be Cook and Kelly, but then Mepham as a backup, which, touch wood, neither Cook or Kelly will get injured. But I think he would be a good backup in the Championship. Whether or not he'd want to be that, he might think, right, okay, if that's what the new manager thinks, he might think, well, no, it's my time's up here. I want to go elsewhere. And at that point, I don't think we could really stand in his way. But at the same time, I think Kelly and Cook, Cook's our captain moving forwards, I think.
I wouldn't be surprised if a new manager, whether it's JT or whatever, I wouldn't be surprised if, I think Kelly and Cook should be the two. But if things maybe weren't going right, with Daniels, I reckon will still take a while to, kind of get back to full fitness and stuff. If Diego is not as consistent, I wouldn't be surprised if a manager goes, Kelly done well in the Championship at left back. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if the odd game he maybe shifts across and Mepham and Cook play essentially. I always thought, actually, I don't think we should do it in the Championship. There was always a part of me, whether maybe if we were mid-table this season rather than in a relegation battle, there's a few times where I thought, particularly Stacey and Rico, I thought they're proper wing backs. They're real wing backs, and our wingers ain't doing it. There were some times where I thought I'd quite like to see kind of Mepham in there in a free, because he likes to try and play. And then obviously when we had Ake and I would have liked to have seen him get, but I think because we were in that relegation scrap, we didn't have that luxury. But I agree. I think Cook and Kelly are the best two. But I want to make one point though. I cannot handle Matt Ritchie, Andrew Sherman, Mark Pugh, all deservedly, and God, Harry Arter's got to be got. How can we not put Harry Arter in if we put? Because in his Premier League performances, he was just as good as Ritchie in the Premier League for us, in my opinion. And he was God in the chat. Please, can we move Arter up? Don't like Harry Arter.
I think you've got a good point, to be honest.
Do you know what I mean? Because of what we've done with the others, I think it's hard when Arter was one of the first we had to choose, and we just moved Ake in there, and Ake's like a different level.
So, Kirk, you're left with Josh King there. What are your thoughts on him?
So I think I've gone through loads of emotions with Josh King in his time at Bournemouth. I think, brilliant, good, sometimes lazy, sometimes frustrating. Sometimes you feel like he wants to play, then he doesn't want to play. And I think he has got all the top qualities to be a top quality player. I think the thing that concerned me about him when we signed him was that he had never scored double figures in his whole career. When he started off at Man United, then got moved to Blackburn, so you knew we were never getting a prolific striker. But obviously, what we were getting with him was that strength, that power, that pace that was going to obviously support Wilson. I don't know what you guys think, but I always thought he sort of played in spells throughout a season. So he would go on a little run. I think he had, he scored some goals at Villa and stuff like that. And he scored some big goals, didn't he? He scored against United. But he was never going to be that 20 goal a season striker that I think we all wanted him to be. But he's never been that in his whole career. So, however, I think we paid absolutely nothing for him from Blackburn, I believe. He scored some big goals for us. I would put him in the good.
Okay, no worries. That's exactly what we will do then. And there he is, you can see. So that is our completed tier list, boys. Or is it? Now, of course, we got our data from Transfer Market, the website, and there were a few undisclosed amounts on there. And if we scroll down, you'll be shocked to see the calibre of names that we've got. I mean, look at that. Brett Pitman, Jan Kermorgant, Adam Smith. Now, all of those have got question marks by them, but of course we've got Junior Stanislas, of course, Dan Gosling. They were free transfers, and we just feel as though we should add these names in regardless. I know we're sort of maybe going against our own policy. However, I think it would be wrong of us to leave these names out. It feels very bad to do so. So, firstly, let's go for Steve Fletcher. And of course, I mean, there's nowhere we can put him other than in the God category, can't we? I mean, we've got a few that go in this category. Steve Fletcher, North Stand named after him, Brett Pitman, all those goals he scored for us, absolute genius. And Jan Kermorgant, I know he only had 2 seasons with us, but what a player he was, and he was certainly left us in high regard as well. Hope you boys are agreeing with this. Now, the 4 we've got left. Now, Junior, he's had his injury problems, but when he's played, he's been good. But can you put him alongside Nathan Ake? I don't think you can. I think we've got to put him in the good. He was arguably the best player within Project Restart, so we'll pop him in there. He could tear up the Championship, and Dan Gosling's going to go alongside him. He's probably not your first choice in terms of a central midfield partnership, but he's always solid when he's called upon. So I think, can't put him in God, and he's certainly not in OK. So Dan Gosling, I mean, what a signing he has been for us, and for a free transfer, I mean, you certainly can't argue with that, can you? Next up, of course, Artur Borich. I mean, he rose up the leagues with us, and I know he always had his issues with, basically the North Stand, turning around and telling him to, F off every now and then. What a character he was. I think I'm going to put him in the good category. Not quite godlike, but Adam Smith I am going to put up there because he's been with us throughout our rise and has always been solid. Maybe in the lesser stages of this last season he hasn't been, but I would say that's pretty much it. I hope you agree with that, boys.
I think what's really difficult when you're doing this is obviously we're trying to do it on a more footballing perspective. Because really, if I was doing this with a fan from an opposition club, I'd be going, well, some of them that are lower, if you're looking at it from a transfer point of view, for example, Tyrone Mings coming in from a footballing perspective wasn't that great for us. We tripled our money. That's God. Do you know what I mean? In certain aspects, that's God. Lis Mousse didn't do anything. We made money on it. That's God. So if it depends how you look at it, I think. But there's not many, apart from Jordan Ibe and Dom Solanke, who is still with us. There's not many that you would say, God, we spent a fortune and they were useless. That, even the ones that we're saying are a bit lower, your Lee Tomlins, things like that. Yeah, but they didn't cost. I mean, I'm looking at Paul there. Brad Smith didn't cost much. Obviously, Billing's still here. Tovey was a loan. Hindman was free. Tomlin didn't cost much. Nor did Wiggins. Nor did. Do you know what I mean? Whereas the ones that he spent significant money on, Nathan Ake, God, Lerma, you know what I mean? All the ones that he spent significant money on, bar Ibe and, like I say, potentially Dom, I think, really, if you look at it from, what I'm saying as an owner of a football club began, to be fair, even if it doesn't work out, he seems to make money on them. So I think you can't argue with that. And, there's people like we're saying with Solanke, maybe I agree with what Kirk was saying. I'm not sure if it'll work out. Billing, he could end up being an awful signing, or we could be God. Do you know what I mean? I don't know what I'm going to get from him next season. But to be honest, I think that says, even though I think we've almost been a little harsh in terms of we've got people in OK that made the club a fortune. So really, we could even be more polite to Eddie. And I think that says it all.
Yeah, you've got players. I mean, if you look from the top down, you've got the players that have completely bought into Eddie Howe's philosophy, and then you slowly sort of go through the list from left to right as you go down, and then you start to see the likes of Jermaine Defoe, who came out recently and said what he said about Eddie Howe. You go down a bit further, Azmir Begovic, rumored falling out, Quana Turbe, one of these players that didn't really fit, Lee Tomlin, and you sort of, and then Jordan Ibe. You get the impression that, you're either an Eddie Howe pleaser or you're not. And the ones that pleased him are in the top three categories, really.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I mean, obviously he didn't put him in because he was a free, but I think Distan would be a similar player to that. Do you know what I mean? Like, he was a decent player, solid centre-half, but he wasn't an Eddie type player. Eddie brought him in because he thought first season, if something goes wrong, we could do with that experience. So really, people would say, Distan was rubbish at Bournemouth. But you go, no, actually, he was the right player to have around the place, and we didn't need him to be good, if you know what I mean.
And for what we got out of him, for what he cost, that's got to go in God, isn't it?
So that is the tier list. What do you think at home? Do you agree? Make sure you put it in the comments. And those are Eddie Howe signings. I don't think you can go with the Eddie Fraud tagline, really, can you? After seeing that, I mean, people always point to certain signings, but when you look at that as a whole, then this is the link that hopefully people can send. Like opposition fans, where the point can be sort of disproven. And like you said, Tom, we haven't spent much on the failures. Of course, there are some ones that people will always look at. I'm hoping Dom Solanke is going to be, proving them wrong next season. You never know. Anyway, thanks so much, guys, for joining. Cheers, Tom.
Thank you very much, sir.
Craig Beasley, thank you very much for your company once again.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
And Bournemouth's version of Gary Neville, Kirk Tovey. Thank you, buddy.
Cheers, Sam. Cheers, guys.
And just let us know what you think in the comments. And thank you for watching. Hopefully we'll be doing a few more of these type videos. If you've got any suggestions, let me know, and just in the comments, and hopefully we'll get on it really soon. But anyway, stay tuned. More videos on the way. A massive week for AFC Bournemouth ahead, and we'll try to keep you updated with what's going on. We'll see you in the next video. Cheers.